very long. So I was sick all week, and you can still hear me a lot of scraggly and craggly here. But I'm getting better. This happened after the 4th of July. I think my brother got me sick. He said, "Oh, I've got some allergies." I don't know what kind of allergies those were, but they were contagious allergies because then immediately I got sick. And I remember what happened. I watched this guy. Now, this dude has always been like, you know, don't touch me, don't drink out of my stuff, don't eat my food, whatever the situation is. This dude takes my cup of whatever, takes a sip of it. I'm watching him do this and then put it down. So that's pretty weird. And then I drank out of the cup. So now I'm sick, which is ridiculous. Um, I'm getting closer and closer and closer to, and that's why I haven't been posting the shorts. Getting closer and closer and closer to boot camp, shipping out. Also, closer and closer and closer to turning 30. And it's been pretty interesting. Life is certainly long and short. And you can see in the first half it feels very long, and then in the second half, you have less future time. You can start to see how it feels short. It doesn't it's eventually it feels short because life does become short because you literally have less of it. But when you're a kid, like 5 hours thing feels like a long time. Whatever. Something interesting that has been happening. So I'm thinking about going into the army and doing all that stuff, but I can feel a change coming over me where it's not necessarily that the creativity inside of me is dying, but I'm certainly falling into a place where there's a different type of reality that's setting in. And it's that the creating and just creating. I think maybe if I had created a platform around that for myself where the whole thing, like maybe if I had a YouTube and I was a little bit more, had some engineering savvy to me, I would have been able to create a format for myself where because there are channels or like build it channels, right? Where they just build stuff and they're not trying to sell anything. The whole channel is about them building things. I'm not that guy. I don't have that engineering savvy, so I could never pull something like that off. Or I guess I could, but I never put in the effort. See what I'm telling you? Um, so that's not where I'm at. But also, I don't think that's necessarily where I ever wanted to be. For a long time, I've been there's been an idea where I've been saying it's not so much about I just wanted to be the creative, but maybe I was just going for some discovery. And now I'm seeing one having all those ideas, it's really cool, but when you get a winner, you stick with a winner. I think I have a lot of pretty solid ideas. I've noticed that I certainly build toys and have an instinct for something that's visually appealing. It's not always an incredible winner, but I often can pick up traction and I have an idea of, okay, it could be simplified to this, but it looks better if you do something bigger. Something I'm learning right now. So I guess when it comes to the creativity, there's a certain point when, such as those build it channels, it's cool, but I think I have always, not always, but for a long time, the money has been something that I've wanted to attain. I thought it's very cool to be able to handle the logistics of all of that. And I've wanted to be able to be the person to orchestrate the logistics. And while sometimes it makes me sad to think about doing that, it's also a very important part. And if you're capable of doing those things, I think you become a pretty powerful individual. So I have to stop trying to do so many things. It's been a lack of discipline and it's been fun, but it's not moving forward very well. I had the video game and there's some exploration going on. And I think the 20s, maybe for some, they're focused and they do make it happen with one thing. For me, it's been a time of discovery. And I've learned a lot from all of that, trying to be a part of all these different things. It's helped to guide me and get me to a place to have little bits of understanding and get comfortable with those little tidbits. Can't make a video game and a board game and a toy and a video game for the toy and this and that and the other. Oh, and a plushie and a book and a this and a that, right? It's too much. So I have to slow down and I have to say, okay, you're not going to do all of those things. And if you do, it's over a longer horizon and you got to stay focused on one thing for a longer period of time before you can move on to those other things because you could do those, but you got to stay focused on that one thing. You want to write a book? Write the book and you got to spend a year or two just doing that. A children's book. The game board moving maze. I mean, I did that. Oh, okay, this will be easier to distribute, but then I didn't really understand how it's not so much, that word competitive. I don't know about that. Everything is competitive. I mean, there are so many people out there. There's so many ways of doing things. Everybody is doing everything. So always be competitive. I don't think that's the situation. It's the supply and demand. There's such a vast supply of video games. It's very hard to swim in a overpopulated pond. even with the board games, it's a very populated pond. Even though I get a lot of traction, I mean, I'm always getting new followers with the board game shorts. So that's, you know, clearly a viable place to operate. But I don't know what I was saying. You can see I'm a little shiny and greasy and not all the way there. The pressure behind my eyes. Moving around, doing stuff, trying things. So getting focused. I mean, at one point I was making Caroline. I said, "Oh, Caroline's going to be my beanie baby, be my big thing." And now I'm starting to realize, one, I have to be a little bit more focused, and two, it takes so long to do things, and this is why brands like, and I totally get why these companies don't want to take me on, which I should get into with the next toy uh, meeting that I had. Companies not wanting to take me on because it's so hard to do things and you don't want to put any money or time or effort into it to get a winner, to maybe get a winner. It's a lot of risk. So no matter how great I think the toy is or how much proof I have or how far I take it until I get actual sales, it definitely is it doesn't mean anything until I get the sales and I prove something. And then at that point, I mean, you're moving forward. Why give it up for pennies on the dollar? That meeting was really funny. It turned into, so I had this meeting with these guys, right? They're not a broker, but they're a broker. And in at some point at the very end, they told me, "Hey, you gotta say, give you some congratulations because you've made it further than most people make it. You've got a patent, you've got something novel, you've had several interactions with toy companies and other people, and you're trying to clearly get in there." They kept trying to give me a theme, maybe a donut. Like a donut, it doesn't work. Or how can we add features? Or maybe you could change it, or you could add, rather than the clicking the playing the game like this, you could do it where you're flipping it or spinning it or doing that, or we can add a feature like this, which was really interesting because it turns it. I mean, I've been working on Oglo for 5 years. And I'm thinking, listen, any idea you think you can come up with and brainstorm in 5 minutes, I promise you I have thought of already. And doing any of it changes the entire toy, it changes everything about it, and it stops it from being Oglo anymore. And that's not the toy that got the millions of views. And so it turned into this features. What feature is it? What feature is it? What feature is it? Let's hold on a second. Oh, okay. I'll start from here. So I had this meeting with Next Toys, and they're trying to brainstorm with me. First off, they told me, "You did a really great job. You've made it further than other people. You've had interactions with toy companies. You've you have a patent, you made a prototype, you got millions of views. It is, you know, crazy to hear you've done all of it right, but you still can't get it. Then they were trying to help me. Here's a theme that you could do, a donut shape, because it's a toroid or it's a donut. I see it as an O. Oh, maybe you can do a silly donut. I'm just never going to do that to Oglo. It will never be a silly donut. I just refuse. Because it'll break doing a donut. The problem with doing a donut is that you break all future shape possibilities. So if you leave it abstract, then the whole thing is that you can do all sorts of weird things. You could turn it into a triangle. You could turn it into a square. You could turn it into an oval. You could turn it into a hexagon. You could turn it into a pentagon. You could turn it into a whatever weird shape. And that's the idea, is that it becomes a lots of weird shapes. And then they kept giving me different features, and it felt like it was brainstorming. Oh, maybe you throw it up into the air. Maybe you do this. Maybe you do that. And again, it turns it into a situation where basically the thing was, we like the shape, we just don't like the game. Which didn't really make any sense. To me, it didn't make any sense. A big piece of the shape was because of the game. I said, oh, this shape, you can see all the sides. Some toys I've played with, you're not able to see the back of it. You have to be able to see the back of it and turn it around. This thing was, you could see all the shape, and it really played into the mechanics. At one point, they said, I don't really get I don't know what brings players back. Which the game is basically whack-a-mole, except the moles don't go back into their hole and they speed up as you keep whacking them. Oglo is whack-a-mole with some slight differences. So, having that meeting was very interesting in that it was the same old, not very helpful. You're doing it all right, but we're not going to take it. Now, I had a meeting with Spin Master at one point, I've told you this, where they said you have to sell at least $750,000 worth of units. And when I was speaking to these people, and this happened last week, they told me, or this week on Monday, they told me, forget that. I've never heard that before, but forget that. And I'm realizing that's the only truth here, because you just want a winner, right? If you were a company, would you want to take risk? No, you would say, well, wait, why do I care about your thing? We're making money. Take your thing and then have to spend time. Why do I care? And if you've ever seen the game Pie Face, that got, I think, 17 million views on YouTube or 23 million views on YouTube, something like that. Made by a British company, Rocket Games. Simple thing. And they immediately took it. So that's the situation. That's what you're dealing with. Even Fugglers, that came from a woman who was already making them and selling them. So you got to make them and sell them. I was searching for Caroline to be my Beanie Baby. But I think Oglo can be my Beanie Baby. It can be my electronic Beanie Baby. where I, I'm thinking that there's this. Okay. So there's this situation in the this is what I'm talking about when I'm turning 30 here. I got to start small. I have to be far more focused than I've been. I've been testing things out. I've been trying things out. They haven't really been working because I haven't been focused on one thing. And even when I tried to get focused on one thing, I knew I was so far away from that one thing, and I never really got all the way into one particular place. I didn't make it happen. So, Oglo. Toys are not saturated. Electronic handheld toys are not. I don't know if it's that I don't know what the demand is for them, but from what I see going around, the supply is not necessarily unbelievably strong. Video games, super supplied. Such a massive supply that I read online constantly of people saying, I have so many wish list games and I don't have the time to get to them all. There's so many. It's just not a great way of getting in there. The board games, much more popular in Europe, but again, I mean, I think my games have a strong, especially Moving Maze, it has that strong interactive. I'm really into the tactile stuff, and it's got that tactile thing going for it. But I'm starting to see that toys, really interactive toys like Oglo, for me, is where it's at. They're visually strong. I have to be able to make them collectible, and they're interactive. Here's something else where the video games are going. There's so many of them, they're in such high supply. People don't leave their houses to go and buy them anymore. They're just on Steam. There's this thing going around of PlayStation not making any more physical hard copy discs anymore of their games. Everything's going to be online. And I'm starting to see that actually what's old is new again, and transitioning away from being online and being a company that makes physical products is really what will put me in a very powerful position. And that I have to stay very focused on physical rather than digital, which is something that I wasn't doing because I thought it was easier to um, deliver on and distribute. And that's the exact reason why it's harder, because then it becomes a marketing game of trying to find the audience, because everybody else feels that same way. Oh, it's very easy to distribute this. we can put more money into marketing. So now I've got this idea where eventually with digital and AI, people are not going to know what they're going to be thinking. They won't, they'll think real things are fake and they'll think fake things are real. It'll be a deep confusion. People will want to see real things. I myself find that I want to see real things. I actually look for grungier looking stuff, just like this, what I've got going on here, because I know that it's real versus other things I say, this looks really good and I can't tell if it's AI or not. I'm cultivating this idea for what the very few toys that I'm ever going to make are going to be. And this is really going to be an important thing for me, is that I'm going to move really far. At some point, it was making lots of different things. I'm desperate to make lots of different things. But it will never serve me well in the long run to do lots of things right now while I have nothing. If I ever have something, then I can do lots of different things. But sticking to one thing and making it all that it can be is going to be the most important. So, I've come up with this term called interactive collectibles. And the idea is going to be taking toys of the past or the ideas of toys of the past and reinventing them with some new life. So, taking a standard idea, mixing it in with old technology, and revamping it. Create an element within that. It's like you have a box that you build, and then you have collectibles that you fill the box with. You create an arena, and then you create collectibles to go within the arena. And Oglo is one of those, where it's an interactive collectible. A big thing with Oglo was always that it was not always going to be an O. The original was going to be an O, and then it was going to break off from there, and again become a circle, a triangle, a square, etc., etc. And then the shapes would get stranger, stranger. It was going to become sculptural, but a game. So the interactive collectible, a two-part toy and game, where a toy becomes involved with how a game is played. How Oglo fits into that. Oglo is a game. It's whack-a-mole, where the moles don't go back into their holes and they speed up each time you whack them in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. Could right? I mean, it could be a huge oglo, it could be a tiny little oglo. So many people said, "Oh, I would like this on a keychain." I said, "That's pretty interesting." This is what people keep saying. They keep giving me all sorts of ideas. Hey, what about this shape? Hey, what about that shape? Oh, it could be more interesting if it was this shape. Oh, you need to do something stretchy. I mean, don't just do springs, do something stretchy. Which I was thinking right now I have springs in there and I could use rubber bands instead. And then I've been thinking, oh, I'm going to do the outside. It's going to be chrome. And then I've thought, wait a second, those squishies, so interesting. Why don't I do like a squishy plastic on the textural something to it? I mean, let's really make this thing weird. Let's make this toy all it can be. Let's get deep down focused in Oglo and make Oglo collectible. Oglo circle with this texture on it, Oglo circle with that texture on it, Oglo circle with this texture on it, Oglo circle with this texture on it, Oglo limited edition rubber bands, Oglo limited edition chrome, Oglo triangle with this texture on it, Oglo. I mean, somebody's suggested putting string on it, and I'm like, that's pretty weird. But so you have an Ogoff version. So it's this toy, which is the shape thing that you interact with, or yeah, but you're interacting with the game. So it's the game that you're interacting with, and then the toy is, and so you're interacting with the game, and then the collectible is the shell. I have this other idea for a game, Floaty Boaty Battle Splash, where, and I have all these other ideas, and I'm thinking, no, you got to be really focused on what your company does and how you can make some money off of this, and you don't have to, because I'm learning just, it's really brutal to make things and design things and come up with the whole process. It takes a long time to do it. It takes a long time to do it right. And because of that, it's wildly, and I mean, I can just keep brainstorming and half baking these projects, but it's never going to get me to where I really would like to be. And I have to somehow channel the creativity and the desire for something new into one single thing. And that's where this interactive collectibles comes in, because the creativity and the ingenuity and the interesting new, what can we do next, is where the collectibles comes in. It could even come in with the interactive where you can change the gameplay slightly. But this Floaty Boaty Battle Splash is another situation where you've got these squirt guns on one end and you're squirting these boats that have sails. And you're trying to push them with the squirts across the board, and you're battling somebody else. So you're squirting your boat and then you're squirting their boat. And it could be a 4-player, it could be a 2-player, but I'm thinking you buy the boat and then you can change the sail, and maybe it comes with little attachments like um, a pump of some uh, uh, I forget what they're called, siphon. So if enough water fills up inside the boat, then a siphon siphons them out and maybe shoots them out of cannons, something like that. And possibly the squirt gun shoots out different ways. Maybe there's a crank and you can get a Gatling thing going, and or there's an extra long squirter where you're pressing it down for a really long time. Maybe there's a big blast where it sprays everywhere but doesn't go very far. Um, But it would mostly be about the boats, and potentially even you would be up against another player and you would set up something to prevent the other player from getting. You'd have to make what would you call it, like booby traps for the other player's boat. You'd be able to buy these different boats, buy the different boat parts. How many different silly boat shapes could you make? And then people are collecting the boats, they're collecting the sails, they're collecting the little guns that go on the side, they're collecting the different types of guns. It's this interactive collectible. So it's like bathtub boats that you're collecting. Another one is a card game that I've had for just so many years. All these games I've had for so many years. And it's a card game that's also a cartridge. So you buy a cartridge of a character and you buy these cards that plugins at the bottom and you plug them into the cartridge and then you would plug them into a game. So it's a fighting game and you'd plug them in. And maybe it's you versus a friend and you guys plug them in. There's something going on here. There's something going on here. It's this interactive collectibles. Interactive collectibles. And I really have to start focusing on that. But also, all these ideas, really interesting. I want to do them, but I can't do them all. I can't do them all. I certainly can't do them all right now. And I have to really stay focused. And I can't get distracted. And I'm prone to getting distracted. Not so much distracted, but oh, this is the next thing. This will be a little bit easier. Oh, this will be a little bit easier. Oh, this will be a little bit easier. But they're never really that much easier. They're harder. They're just as hard. It's all just as hard. It takes just as much time. I'm glad that I've stuck with. I mean, I left Oglo for a while to do some other stuff because I was distraught about the whole situation. I didn't have the capacity to say, no, I can do it. I can move all the way through. I can get the manufacturing going. And that was good why I did Caroline, because I made it, because that one was a lot faster, where it wasn't all the designing of the, you know, hardware, software, figuring out the gameplay. It was just design a shape for the plushie, get it done. And I got it done. And then I said, okay, hey, wait, I can do something like that. Look, I got this from a manufacturer, so this was manufactured. And I got 3 of them very quickly. And I got to taste what that was like. And then moving on to the video game and getting a taste of what the video game took. And okay, we got to make this, design this, try that out, and saying, okay, I see what this is all about. I see why people are doing this. I see how this is. But the thing I have the furthest along is Oglo. And I really see it being an interesting thing that it is so. It's that one thing where when I show people or talk to them about it, no matter what, I mean, I've spoken to plenty of people now in the industry where this toy is certainly something of interest. A plushie, people can make plushies quite easily. There are lots of make your own plushies. Build-A-Bear saw how easy it was to make a plushie, and then they did that. That was really smart. So that's another one of those markets where it's pretty easy to do, but because of that, the supply is really high. Board games, it's relatively easy to do, so the supply is going to be really high. Video games, not necessarily easy to do, but lots of people are so interested in it and put effort into it, and everybody's so focused on the digital that it's then has a big supply, and so it's easy to do, and lots of people do it. The toys, I don't think so many people are doing it. I mean, they're doing some type of toy, like the squishy toys they might be doing, but not this thing. And this is where I think I can shine. Coming up with these really, really hyper tactile games. And toys. That mix hyper tactile, very interactive toy collectible with a game. It's a toy and a game. It's two things at once. Not only do I provide you with an objective, but I also provide you with something of a figurine of sorts. And I'm thinking, to me, that's like the toy's toy. A figurine, you either have to have that childlike imagination where you're playing with it, or you're an adult and you just stick it up on the shelf. Then you've got the toys like Bop It. I've seen people, they say, I've got a Bop It collection, and then it's a pile of them where they're lined up on their bed, and I say that's interesting. But how you presented it, it's not cherished, it's not something that you're putting up somewhere and saying this is really cool, and like I'm gonna frame it. Some people are gonna frame they're gonna take their Star Wars figurines that are still mint in the box and they're gonna place it up on a shelf. How am I bridging that gap of it's a toy that you can play with even as an adult? You can give it a shot and say, oh, this one's the really hard one, and I'll put it up on the shelf. So that's where I'm trying to move, and I'm trying to pull back and be focused, pull back and be focused, pull back and be focused. Have more discipline. Move into my 30s saying, okay, I know exactly where I'm going to go. And while I might not be able to live my life coming up with all these different things, many people did not come up with all these different things. And if they did a few. It wasn't this. Most of the time, they're just focused on one thing. You cannot just be focused on one thing. I'm just going to be focused on one thing or a few things. I could probably really get out if and the other thing is to say I know who I am enough where I want to have that creativity and I want to do the building and I want to do the designing. So the things that I do have to have that incorporated in them so that I can feel as though I'm coming up with stuff and it is not just, you know, I'm pulling the lever and pushing the button in the factory and making it happen. A piece of that has to come into play eventually, and I will have to sacrifice for that, but I still need to face off with the concept of pulling back, relaxing, and staying focused. Trying to do these highlights so that I get more videos out of this one. Okay, I think I'm going to call it here. Haven't had a single person or a single like, which is pretty wild, but whatever. Um, I certainly feel as though something big is coming up. Oh, I had a funny interaction before I go. I had a funny interaction with somebody where I was on Reddit and I asked them, "Hey, I heard these sounds. They sounded really cool. I made this toy. I went viral a couple of times, and I'm moving into the prototype intended phase, and I'd like you to make some sounds pro bono for free." They say, "Okay, blah 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 blah." Then I wait a week. They come back and they say, "I've been thinking about it, and most people don't do this for free, and then they get paid, and this and that and the other." And then he said, because I guess he had probably gone through the videos and seen that they go viral pretty often. He said, "This could be a pretty massive hit, and if it's going to be commercial, then I have to either get paid or want a percentage of the sales," which I'm thinking, dude, you're just making two sounds, the on and the off sound, which I paid somebody to do the on sound, sort of, and then I worked on it more, and then I made my own off sound. And so, that I didn't even say anything back, but I thought, dude, you agreed to do it for free. Now you made me wait a week to tell me, no, I have to get paid because you're thinking that this is your chance to make some money, and I don't have any money to give you. Or I want a percentage of the sales. That's wild stuff. The moment, like maybe when you're a loser, somebody will say, sure, nothing's going to happen from it. The moment they get a glimpse of, oh, there's some possibility, then you're hit with that. Pretty interesting. Okay, I'm going to go. See you guys later. You have a good one.